这一场议程呢，将由李璇为我们带来 Create an NFT on Flow in 30 minutes。欢迎大家开启 Slido 以及 HabMD 来做提问与共笔，那也可以在聊天室里面参与讨论。那接下来呢，就让我们欢迎李璇的分享。
Okay. Hi, I'm Shen Li. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Blocto. And today I'm going to share with you and show you how you can build a dApp on Flow in 30 minutes. Okay, so I think a lot of you may already know, but I just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So yeah, I'm going to go through a little bit of basics first. So first, what is a dApp? So as opposed to normal or centralized applications that we're more familiar with, so like centralized applications are the ones in the left. They have their service built on centralized servers. So for example, Facebook, Google, or basically most of the services that you do have their backend built into a server on the cloud or in some warehouse they have. But anyway, like it's controlled centrally. As opposed to those centralized applications, dApps or like decentralized applications have their backend built on blockchain. So it runs, it works with like the data and logic is controlled by the smart contract that are deployed onto blockchain. So people can basically see the logic and see the data that are associated with this application. And second, so what is Flow? I think a lot of you may have know already, but I'm just going to go through that as well. So Flow is a new blockchain protocol that is secure and it's high performance. Like the transaction fee is low and the throughput, the transaction per second is high. And it has great developer experience and great user experience. And yeah, so a couple of major projects like NBA Top Shots, like MotoGP Ignition, they're built on this Flow blockchain. And who am I? I'm the co-founder and CEO of Blocto and Portal. And what we do in Blocto is that we aim to make blockchain experience simple. Yeah, and I have been working in this blockchain space for quite some time as well. Okay, so back to the topic. The goal of this workshop is to show you how you can build a simple message board dApp on Flow. And that comprises of two parts. One part is a smart contract that is running on Flow and a web UI to interact with the smart contract. Yeah, so this is just a simple message board that people can post message on it and people can see other people's message. Yeah, but it's very simple. It only has one message to make, just to demonstrate the process. Okay, so the project looks like this. So it has a smart contract that is running on Flow. And so it has its smart contract part, and it also has its web UI part. So it's like a front-end app that users can use to interact with the underlying smart contract. Okay, so so let's get started. So first, we're going to initiate the project and build the smart contract and deploy it onto Flow network. Okay, so so let's start. And we'll start with, so the first step that we're going to do is we're going to create a smart contract. And I'll put it here. And a message board, CDC. So CDC stands for cadence. That is the smart contract language that's used on Flow. And it's actually pretty simple. So I guess many of you haven't had any cadence experience, and that's fine. Like you can understand this code easily. So first I'm going to define the contract and name it message. Okay. So, and in the contract, we're going to have one variable, and that's the message that user leave on this board. So I'm going to add a variable. So it's actually quite simple. So there's a variable named message, which has the type string. So it's a simple string, and this variable can only be accessed by other functions inside this contract. Yeah, and with the variables in Cadence contract, you have to initialize them. So what this does is that when you deploy this smart contract onto blockchain, this initializer will be executed, and it will set the message into like nothing here yet, as like a placeholder state. Okay, and the next step is that we're going to allow users to update this message. So add a setter and getter for this message. So setter first, set message. And it's going to take in like a parameter message. Let's name it. Okay, just name the message. And it has the type string as well, and it will update the current message in the contract into the new message that's sent in from this function. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, and we're also going to add a getter for this message. So it follows the same pattern. Public function get message. It's going to return a string, and what it returns is the message parameter, message variable that is inside of this this contract. Yeah, so that's all. Yeah, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Just variable message, and to store the message from the users, and users can set this message into a new one or get the current message from the contract. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we're going to deploy this contract onto Flow Testnet. And okay. So to do that, we actually need this configuration file, and we're not going to go through too much of details for this. So this is actually used with Flow client command line interface. Yeah, so Flow CLI, and this is like the config for a Flow CLI. It tells the CLI like which networks, which nodes they can connect to access different networks. So for example, testnet, mainnet, and local emulator. And also in here, there are a couple of accounts that the CLI can use in order to send transactions. So what we're going to use is this account, like this admin account that's running on Flow Testnet. And I just created it just now. And it has this address, and the private key for this account is this. Yeah, so we're going to use this account to deploy this contract. So yeah, just to add a contract, naming message board. The source code is from here, contracts, message board, Cadence, and choose the testnet. And the signer is that admin account that I just showed. Okay, so this will deploy the contract that we just wrote onto this, into this account. Okay, so yeah, that's great. So everything looks fine. The contract message board has been deployed into this account normally and successfully. Yeah, that's great. So we're done for this part. Okay, so now that we have the very simple smart contract in place, the next step for us is to build the UI to interact with this smart contract. And this is actually the main focus of this sharing. So yeah, in order to interact with this smart contract, you will need to know how to communicate with Flow blockchain. So it involves like a bunch of requests that you can send to the testnet to query like the current contract state, like get information from this contract, as well as sending transactions to update the state in this contract. And you don't really have to build that from scratch. So there's already a library, a Flow client library that is built specifically for this use case. Actually, it has like Flow client library and Flow SDK in it. So basically, it can help you interact with a Flow network. So you can help you construct the transactions and the scripts you need to get data from the blockchain or send data onto the blockchain. And another part of that FCO does is that it can it can connect to a wallet service for you. And so the wallet service that we're going to use is Blockto. And so Blockto and FCO actually knows how to communicate with each other so that user can basically connect with the Blockto wallet through the APIs defined in FCO. And when the dApp wants to send a transaction from the user's account to the network, they can also initiate that request through FCO, and that FCO will wire that request to Blockto. And then Blockto will handle all the showing, it will show the user what message that they're being asked to send. And then if the user approves of the transaction, they will, Blockto wallet will then sign the transaction and then send it out onto on-chain to complete the interaction. Yeah, and yeah, let's see how we can make that happen. Okay, so first we will need this Flow FCO library. So we'll add this FCO library into our project. Okay, that's quick. So next, we're going to set up our project to actually use FCO. So in order to do that, we're going to set up some configs first. So just use the FCO library and put a couple of configurations. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to point this dApp to Flow Testnet. So we're going to specify this access node API to the Flow Testnet endpoint. Okay, so access testnet. Okay. And the second thing that we're going to do is that we're going to connect, we're going to use Blockto wallet as the wallet service. So shake the Blockto wallet. We call it testnet authentication. So this is the a handshake URL from Blockto wallet that FCO can use. And if the user want to log in, they will be guided to this place and complete the login process. And then this will handle all the signature and all the authorization, authentication stuff for this dApp. Okay, so now the configuration is done. Now we are actually going to show stuff in this React boilerplate to actually do the stuff that we want to do. Okay, so first we're going to create a login component, which shows the user's login data and for users to log in and log out of their current connected account. To do this, create an authentication component. So okay, so and we're going to need React for this, as well as this component is also going to handle handle the current connected address. So we're going to remember the account state. So we're going to use the state hook and yeah. Oh. Okay, and we're going to need FCO as well. Okay. So first, we're going to display something very simple. I'm going to display user's address. I'm going to get that address from FCO. So address. Start with empty value. Okay, so it's supposed to not show anything for now. Let's see what happens, and we're going to add this component to the root. Okay. Yeah, and we can get rid of this logo as well and see what happens. Okay. Am I running it? Yeah, I suppose I'm running it. What's going on? Okay. Yeah, so yeah, currently it's supposed to not show anything. That's great. And now we're going to actually actually show the connected wallet, connected address for the user. So, and also we're going to add a button for user to actually connect, log in or log out. So, or log out. Okay, so yeah, log out. What it does is that if currently the user is logged in, we just lock the user out, or otherwise, if the user is currently not authenticated, we lock the user in. So if there's if the address is already there, then we lock user out by authenticate. Okay, and also the message that's shown here is address is here, and show. And we're going to like actually get the address from users currently connected states. So we're going to do when this component is loaded, simply start by FCO. Right. So we subscribe to the FCO status update, and that should give you an account, and we need that address from this account. So yeah. Okay, so this should do it. So now we have currently we're not logged in. We see a login button, and when we click login, it will basically just initiate that FCO authenticate process, and it will then like spawn the Blocto login page. Yeah. So yeah, and I want to use this account on this website. Confirm, and then like now the dApp can read my address, and then I can log out and log back in. And I can switch to another Blocto account as well. Yeah. Great. That's all for the login and logout process. So the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to interact with the message board contract. So we're going to create another component for that. Okay, so first. We're going to need use states. Okay. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is that we want to get the current message from the contract, and in order to do that, we are also going to use FCO as well. Oh, FCO. Okay. So this component shows the current message. Message. Probably use current. Instead, set. Can start with emptiness and want to use current message. Okay. And we're going to define a function to read this data, read this message data from the blockchain. So update message. Okay, so in order to get data from blockchain, we actually need to execute a script, a cadence script, and the script to read from our message board contract looks like this. So get message. First, we need to use the message board contract. So we can export message from the address that it gets deployed to. So if you remember, like we deployed that contract onto this address. So we just deployed a message board contract onto this address. So that is also where we're going to use this contract from. Yeah. So now we can interact with this message board and so in a cadence script, there's supposed to be a main function as the entry point for this script. And the result will be a string, and what we want to do is actually just use call the. So the cadence contract looks like this. We will just want to call the get message function from this contract. So yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're going to send this transaction, and FCO has the request builder for us to do that. So we can send the transaction, and this is the request builder. And we currently for this request, we'll want to run a script. The content of the script is this get message script. Okay, and so this will send the request to the Flow access node, and then we can get the data. And when we get the raw response, we want to decode the response into the actual string that we care about. And then like we will use the string and set it to current string. And when this component loads, I want to start by calling this function. Yeah. Okay, so when this component loads, update message will be called, and this script will be executed, and then the response will be set into the current message. So that will help us get the current message that is in the message board. Okay, so let's see what happens. We haven't added to the main component yet. This message component. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we can see that the current message is nothing here yet, which is the initial string that we set for the contract. Okay, so the next thing for us to do is that we want to update this add an input and a button for user to update the message into this smart contract. And so start by and okay, so I'll change. So okay, and add we'll have an event and put the input into a new message state. So when user updates the input, we will set this into the new message that user want to send on chain. So the event project value. This essentially sets the input value into this new message state. Okay, and when user clicks the button to submit, it will submit the message that user typed. Submit. Okay, so here we want to actually make the request to send the new message onto the blockchain into the message board contract. And the transaction script to do that looks like this. So okay, so likewise, it also needs to interact with the message board contract. Transaction has is supposed to have an argument in the type of string. And what this transaction does is that it will call the message board, call the set message method in the message board contract and put the new message into it. Yeah. So you can see from the message board contract, there's a message and like with a parameter message. Yeah. And here it takes the argument of this transaction and then sets message into the contract. So right now, like we're just going to send it with FCL. So like what we did with executing a script, we can also use the request builder like this. But instead of running a script, right now we're going to run a transaction. And the transaction's content is message transaction. Okay. And since this transaction actually takes one argument, we have to put that argument in there as well. So but there's only one argument, which is the new message. And we also have to define the type here. So we're going to add a type library as well. So and this has the type of string. Okay. And for transactions, they also need a proposer and a payer for the transaction. The proposer is the account that initiates this transaction, and the payer is the account to pay for their transaction fee of this transaction. Yeah, so we will need to specify who will be the proposer and who will be the payer of this transaction. And one good thing about FCL and the wallet service that it provides is that once the user authenticated through that login button that we just showed, you can use that login status here and authorization. Okay, so basically what it does is that, so I need a proposer and I need a payer, but who's actually going to be the proposer and the payer will be provided by the connected wallet service. So in this case, it's Blocto. So before sending this transaction, FCL will actually ask Blocto, so who will be the actual proposer of this transaction and who will be the payer, and Blocto will take care of it and show appropriate authorization information to the user. Lastly, set the gas limit for this transaction. Yeah, so this will send the transaction on chain, and let's process the response. So after this transaction is sent, it will return with the transaction ID, and we can then use this transaction ID to query the result of this transaction and do this subscribe. Okay, so it will keep polling for this for the update of this transaction ID and see what happens with it. Yeah, and when this transaction is sealed, then we can just use the result and we call update message again to get the newest message from the contract. And also we want to do this because like this will keep monitoring the transaction status forever. But we want it to stop as soon as the transaction is sealed. So unsubscribe, and if it's sealed, then we just call unsubscribe. And yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this should do the trick. Let's try it out. Okay, so I can enter a new message. And when I submit, it's supposed to, yeah. So when I submit, like it will initiate this authorization process with the wallet service. So the wallet service will show the appropriate information to the users. So for example, what is the transaction script and what are the arguments for the transaction? And if the user feels comfortable about this transaction, they can approve it. And then like that transaction gets sent on chain. But since we are not monitoring the status here, it's kind of like, yeah, so we actually don't know what's happening. Just wait. Okay. So what happens is that this new message is sent on chain. And once that transaction is complete, it's sealed, we query the smart contract and see like what is the new message that is stored in there. And that is the new message that we just sent. Yeah. And to make this a little bit better in user experience, we're going to add some indicator that the transaction is being processed. So it's processing. Okay, so when we start sending the transaction, we set this processing to true, and if this completes, we will just set it to false, and we will disable the button if it's currently processing. Yeah, this should make it a little bit better. So then new message. Okay. So we can actually see that FCO is doing something right now. We're sending a transaction and approve again. As we're waiting, like, yeah, we know the transaction is still being processed. So we wait a little bit longer. Yeah, so now that the transaction is complete, and we can see that this message has been updated to the new message that we sent. Okay, so yeah, that completes this very simple message board dApp. So let's review what we have done. We have built the message board contract and deployed onto Flow Testnet, and we have built a front-end UI to interact with it. Yeah. And you can find all the resources that we just did here. And yeah, thank you. So if you have any questions building a dApp on Flow or integrating with Blockto Wallet, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.
谢谢李璇的分享。如果有问题的话，欢迎大家可以到 Slido 上面来做提问。那接下来就请讲者来为我们做 Q&A。
好，大家好，我是李璇。然后现在在美国，然后那个现在已经是晚上，然后天很黑，所以就先不开这个荧幕。好呀。 没什么人问问题的话，那我就补充一点刚刚没有讲到的东西好了。就是这个 Flow 这个 blockchain 啊，其实它前面的讲者也有提到嘛，就是这个CryptoKitty 其实是在就是 NFT 领域里面算是蛮指标性、这个算是一个先驱的一个项目。然后这个 dApp Labs 就 CryptoKitty 的这个做 CryptoKitty 的团队的 CTO，就是 dApp Lab 的 CTO。那他就是发明这个 NFT standard 的这个人嘛。那 Flow 这个链其实也是这个 dApp Lab 他们开发的，就是因为他们刚前面有讲到，在这个 CryptoKitty 在 Ethereum 上面然后爆红，结果把 Ethereum 塞爆之后，那我就发现其实这样子的链不太 OK，就是作为一个这种要支撑这种比较面向大众的应用，那是不够用。对，所以就做了 Flow 这条链。那 Flow 这条链其实不只是说它的效能比较好啦，其实更重要的是它有一些就是智能合约语言设计上面的一些想法跟一些逻辑，其实是跟现在的 Ethereum 是蛮不一样的。就是 Ethereum 其实算是这种智能合约的一个先驱，所以就是对它其实整套这种智能合约语言都是模仿中心化系统的这种语言设计。所以像是在这个合约上面存这些资产，其实它就只是合约上面的一个数字、一个变数而已。那也因为这样子的设计，造成很多之前像是什么这个重入攻击 （reentrancy attack），或者是因为闪电贷，然后因为一些就是变数它更新的这个顺序不对，所以造成它资产被偷等等这种问题。那这些问题其实在 Flow 里面的，它从程式语言层面就已经解决了大部分的问题，所以其实还蛮不容易出错的。对，所以有兴趣可以参考一下。好，那回答一下问题，请问 dApp 有没有机会实现 real time sync？这个东西其实是有可能。那现在的 dApp 都不太会往这种方向去做，是因为现在的这些链嘛，就是在做 dApp 的这些链，它其实 transaction confirm 的时间就是很久啊。像 Ethereum，你运气好，你交易一发出去，然后假设说你 gas 也给的很足够，那你可能是大概10秒钟左右 confirm。10秒钟其实感觉也没有很 real time，就是我做了一个，就假设说我是做了一个角色，然后往前走了一步，然后他10秒钟之后才真的往前走一步，那这个体验应该是很痛苦的。对，所以其实之前这种呃要做 real time 的 dApp 是蛮不可能的，所以大家其实就从这种体验设计上面就已经排除 real time，然后就直接都是做非同步，就是说我所有的操作我都会预期，就是使用者其实也已经被训练出来这种习惯，就他会预期这个交易可能会需要一点时间，有可能是10秒钟，有可能要等更久，这个塞车的时候可能要等2个小时、1天之类都有可能。对，所以就比较不会预期这它是同步。那现在有一些新的比较高效能链，像是 Flow 是一个，然后刚刚上一个讲者讲的 Cosmos 也不错，然后还有现在应该就是效能王者应该是 Solana 嘛。那这些链大概都可能有一点机会做到就是 real time 的 dApp 啦。对，可是不过另外说，其实区块链适不适合拿来做这件事情，其实可能不那么适合。当然它可以做得到，可是问题是就是呃对，就是其实你真的要存上，因为你再怎么说，你把资料存上链，其实成本是比较高的，比起存在中心化系统是高的。对，所以其实你不是所有资料都想要存上链。例如说，你往前走一步，这种资讯这么废，就其实不会想要存上链。可能会想要存上链的东西，可能是你的这个使用者的用户资产有多少，这种东西你可能会想要存上链。好，那下一个问题，哎，为什么要去美国？这好，有点私人，不过也还 OK，就是因为我们就是公司现在就是有接受到500 startup 的投资，然后来这边参加一些它的这个500 startup 的一些加速器活动。然后读取 current board message，呃，需要支付手续费吗？还是只有留言才会需要支付手续费？对，好，那这个东西是也不算蠢问题啦。这个其实
大部分的区块链都是这样子，就是你当你只是单纯跟链上读资料的时候，是不需要付手续费的，因为你没有改变链上的状态，你只是从就是链上抓一些讯息出来。对，所以读目前的 message 是不需要付手续费的。那更改目前的 message 就是刚刚另外那个 transaction， 就是刚有做2件事情嘛，一个是 script， 一个是 transaction。script 就是单纯读资料，读资料这个东西是不需要付手续费，然后set 那个 new message 就是需要付手续费。对，那当然这个东西并不是铁则啊，可是现在大部分的区块链大概都是这样子的设计。好，下面有跳出来一个新的问题。好，Flow 是比较适合游戏类的 NFT 吗？如果影片文字呢？其实Flow 其实还蛮适合任何的 NFT。这里可是要讲的完整的话，可能会需要蛮多时间，所以有机会也可以加入我们的这个 Telegram 或 Discord。那可以搜寻我们，就是可以搜寻 Blocto BLOCTO，然后可以找到我们这个 Telegram 或 Discord 的连接。那有机会再来切磋一下。不过就是它其实不只是适合游戏类的 NFT， 甚至它其实不只适合 NFT。就是 Flow 上面这个智能合约语言，它让各种就是资产在链上存资产这件事情变得更安全，然后变得更有效率。它这个 model 叫做 resource oriented programming 啊，就是说它在处理这些资产的时候，其实并不是把这个资产单纯当做一个变数来处理，而是它是真的有把它当成一个在使用者的账户里面一个特殊的存在，所以这些资产在做交换的时候，其实是就是会有一些额外的安全措施，所以才会让它变得就是比较好。那它其实不只适合 NFT， 它其实也适合 fungible token， 就是这个可分割的资产，像是这个 Ethereum 或者是 USDT、USDC 之类的。那它目前给人的印象是好像都是做游戏类型的 NFT， 是因为它本身就是第一波的这些合作伙伴，像是什么 MotoGP 啊、NBA Top Shot 之类的，这些东西都是比较偏向游戏类型。可是其实它的适合做的东西不只是这样子。然后美国的检疫措施哦，就美国人就是很随性，所以他们基本上是这样，就是他们没有特别的要求怎么样的什么隔离啊什么的，所以大家来这边都是基本上是就是自我约束、自我隔离。对，好。那没有什么新问题的话，就再工商一下，就是说大家可以去搜寻一下 BLCTO。然后我们现在合作的其实不只是 Flow 啦，还有像是 Solana， 还有几个 Polygon 啊、BSC， 然后Avalanche 之类的，我们接下来都会有一些合作的应用推出。对，所以可以关注一下。然后我们如果你是 dApp 开发者的话，那就更适合关注一下，因为我们最主要就是想要提供 dApp 开发者一些好用的开发工具，然后让你可以做好用的应用给你的用户。
好，那我们就谢谢李璇的分享。那下一场议程呢，会在12:55的时候开始。